Yeah.
Right.
I like wrestling. I like MMA fighting. But I could sit here and hear you tell stories about it all day.
Each and every month was a different program depending on what skit or what direction you were going with the storyline. And it could completely flip around and go in a different direction the next month.
Yeah.
So you never really understood exactly what the end was going to be.
Do you have any input in it? Are you able to say, I don't like the way this is going?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think everybody has that opportunity, but whether or not they listen,
right.
that's another story.
Who'd you run with? Who were your buddies back then?
Oh man, I would have to say, Billy Gunn was one of them. Road Dogg was another. Steve Blackman, the girl that played my sister, Ryan Shamrock.
Right.
Those were probably the ones I ran with most. When I first came in, I was with Flying Brian for a little while. I drove him around.
Yeah.
I was kind of the chauffeur. And that was a story in itself.
People don't understand that. I mean, now I don't know how much, but you would go to Florida and you would do a show in Tampa, and then you would drive out to Jacksonville,
right.
Fort Myers, Miami. Literally get in a car after you and 2 guys or 3 guys would drive from event to event, and that's everybody thinks you guys are getting private jetted everywhere, and that's crazy.
No,
although now with the money they're all buying their own tour buses and stuff.
Well, I don't think so. Not with the money they're getting now. Top guys could.
Top guys, yeah.
But I mean seriously, that's a story in itself when you talk about travel. I mean, we would go from one place to another place. In 10 days, we'd be in 10 different cities. So think about that. And so you would either stay in a hub, which is where you flew into, then you drive 2 hours out. Different directions each night, doing a show in that area, and in the last night you would do it in the city you flew into, which would be the big TV or big Thursday night SmackDown or whatever it was, that you would end on a 10-day tour or a 7-day tour in the big city. But you would fly into there, and then you would travel to 5 to 7 different areas outside that city to actually advertise the big TV show or pay-per-view event in the big city.
What's the enthusiasm like when you're doing something like, I saw you one time at the USF Sundome at a house show? It was really my first wrestling since I was a kid at that point. And it was a big show. I mean, Undertaker, Stone Cold, you guys were all on it. And in fact, I was taking pictures on a disposable camera. That's how long ago it was. And when I got it developed, I have a great picture of you. Every once in a while, I'll find it in like a photo box. A great picture of you getting like you're coming at me. It's just your head like this. But here you are. That's a house show.
How that one ended.
It's a house show, and you're like, this isn't on TV. I'm not gonna throw my face into the ground for this. Like, do you lose enthusiasm for those things?
I never did, because to me it was about every time I stepped in there, I wanted to be better.
Yeah.
So I never really judged it on how many people were in the audience or whether or not it was TV or pay-per-view. I judged it on the performance of me going in there and whatever I was doing at that time or whatever the program was at that time, that I was the best.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that people remembered our match. So I was always very competitive and always wanted to make sure that I put on the best show.
Who didn't you like at the time? Like, who didn't you get along with?
Well, it wasn't like I really try to make sure that I try to get along with everybody.
Right. You seem like a nice guy, but a lot of those guys' egos come into play, and there's always groups that they like and then guys that they don't like.
Yeah, it gets cliquish, and I've seen a lot of that. I never really got tied up into that. I tried to know everybody, but there are just some guys that just won't allow you to like them.
Yeah.
They just won't. And I try not to deal with them. I try not to.
Who is the most unlikable guy?
I wouldn't say unlikable, but I think probably got just a lot of, because he was going through this thing with WWF where he switched sides. He went to the WCW. He came back because he left with Hogan and all them, and I believe that Hunter Hearst was that guy that left and had come back. Well, when he came back, Vince was beating him, right? And I was a new guy coming in, and of course he had to do a couple jobs for me. But later on, I also put him over too, so it wasn't like it was one-sided. So, but I think there was some of that there because I was getting such a push. And he was coming back into a bad situation because he left and then he came back and he had to do some things that to prove that he wanted to be back there. And
look at him now.
Of course, then he marries Vince's daughter, and the guy that walked away from WWF along with all the superstars walked away and turns around and marries his daughter. Tell me this business isn't forgiving.
What does that stand on the Hall of Fame? because he runs that, doesn't he?
Yeah, I keep getting that even through social. Before I came in, I was looking that up, and people were saying, how is it that all these guys are being brought back? And literally just read it. And that have done much more worse, whatever worse that is with me, because I don't know.
To the company, yeah. That
would not recognize the things that Ken Shamrock did during the Attitude Era when he had the matches with The Rock and, with Blackman and Owen Hart and Bret Hart and all these matches that people constantly keep remembering as being some great matches, a great feud with The Rock, even with Shawn Michaels, matches with him, but
and also,
never recognized.
Even if you're like, hey, just the name factor alone. I mean, the fact that there's such crossover, it would just be a smart business move, even if they didn't like it.
It was the first one.
Yeah.
I mean, I was literally the ones that opened doors for Ronda and Brock and all those guys to be able to do those moves, to be able to move back and forth without having criticism, because I took it. So for that, I read it all the time, and I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
And someone said, man, someone please, when they do this next Hall of Fame thing, someone please ask Vince or Stephanie or Hunter why Ken Shamrock is not recognized and remembered during that.
I'm going to find out. I'll ask. WrestleMania is here, and they haven't been the greatest to work with for WrestleMania, but I would imagine when it gets closer, we'll have people coming through. I'm going to start throwing that around. I want to find out why.
I've said this many times, is I'd like to know, because I truly do. I've guessed, but I really truly don't know. I don't know. Do you think Hunter still has bad feelings towards you? I don't see in that speculating. I mean, I've speculated that, well, maybe it was, we didn't, we had this issue one time where something happened and I called him out on it. Maybe that was it, but it's all speculation.
I'm sure a lot of people have had those situations with him over the years.
Nothing that was worse than anybody else, or I think mine was a lot less because it was just kind of, ribbing stuff. So, like I said, I really don't have an answer for it. And for me, it's like this when people ask me, well, doesn't it upset you? And I was like, why would it upset me? It's like I have no control over that.
Right.
None.
Well,
so for me to have to dwell on it or get upset over it's a waste of time.
Yeah, you don't want to sit around dwelling on it, but you should be paid the respect.
Well, I get that. I think I should, and I've even mentioned it. I said, well, if you look at what someone being inducted into a Hall of Fame is did they leave the company different? Did they change things? Were they able to
Bruno
do things,
left,
break records, just all kinds of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, clearly the qualifications are there and the time is there, and then there are guys like Bruno who has been mother effing Vince for 20 years, 30 years maybe, and they make peace with him and bring him over. I mean, that's the way to do it. Yeah. Maybe you call the AEW guys and be like, I'm gonna get a little run over here first.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm Impact, and actually I'm doing a show on the 12th in Dallas.
Are you Impact? I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm going against Fulton World. It's the 12th this Sunday. I'm going to be in Dallas doing a pay-per-view event. You want to check it out? It's called Hard to Kill.
Where is it? I just went to Dallas. I've been in Dallas a bunch of times as a hub, but I went there and spent a couple of days there. What a fantastic city. I never thought in a war. I mean, I'm a New Yorker. I was like, I ain't living in that country. There's no country at all there. It's a city, and it's badass.
It's got a lot of money there.
Oh, yeah, it does. Listen, so we went to one of the hockey players' houses over there, and I couldn't believe how many gazillion-dollar neighborhoods we drove through to get there. I mean, there is a lot of money in Dallas.
No, it's big time. And, we used to make fun of it because it was a lot like L.A. in the 80s, silicones and cell phones.
Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. This is Ken Shamrock, who's in the studio with us. We love having you on the show. One more thing. When you're in the WWE, and are you married at that time?
Yes.
You are?
Yes. Yeah.
When did that first marriage, second marriage?
First marriage.
So we can talk about that. So I would imagine the girls loved you.
Oh, I was a rock star, at least in my own mind.
But I mean, good looking guy. You weren't one of those ugly wrestlers who happens to be like, it's hard for Kane and those guys. I mean, they're good wrestlers. They're ugly human beings. At the end of the day, you could put a nice shirt on and go to a club, and girls must love you.
Yeah, right. It didn't have to cover my face, and people go, "Who are you again?"
Yeah. Seriously though, I mean, that must have been a night, especially at that time. in the 90s.
It was fun, no doubt. It was fun. It was a good time. But at the same time, you look back on it, you go, man, I wasted opportunities because I was so busy out there chasing, having fun, doing things I probably shouldn't have been doing. And I look back on it, and it's just like, man, I had so many opportunities that I wasted.
You think, like, why? What do you think you missed out on?
Well,
in my mind, you did everything.
Money, right? I mean, like, when you do that stuff, man, you're spending money, you know. And I mean, obviously, I'm living good now, but I had to make changes. I had to regrow and rebuild myself and rethink what I was doing. A lot of people, when they start out like that, they can't stop, and then they're broke, right? So that's kind of where I was at, where I was going down that path. Like, this is fun, and I don't think the money ever is going to run out.
Right.
And
I always worry the money's going to run out.
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm always like, this isn't going to last long, you know. But that's what you have to do. And now you see some of these guys, though, which I like the mentality, especially the guys who are on the road all the time. They're like, I got an apartment. I'm never there anyway. Why would I waste all my money on a gazillion-dollar house and all that stuff?
Guys are smarter now, though, because there's stories like the one I'm telling. They hear it over and over again. So now when these guys come into the pro wrestling and the fighting, MMA and all boxing and all these other things, there's enough stories out there that are telling these guys, hey, this is what happens, and it ain't no joke. It's real. Yeah. So they're a little more educated. Just like with NFL and football, you see these guys coming in now. There's so much more education on money. So when they walk in, it's just not flowing through their hands, and they can't stop it.
Yeah, smart. I have a 13-year-old son. He had a huge growth spurt in the last couple of years. How do you know if he's got a potential to be a fighter? Like an MMA fighter.
You'll know. I mean, they gravitate towards, wrestling, or they gravitate towards, action movies, or they themselves.
But physically, that's where you would start them in, like, in high school wrestling, or you would send them over to a school, or that's where you would go first?
I would definitely put them in a school.
Yeah.
And whether it be boxing or whether it be even gymnastics when they're younger. I started my kids out in gymnastics when they were 5 and 7 years old.
Get them all flexible and moving.
They understand their body and how it moves and how it works and how you're supposed to stretch and do all the things properly. Gymnastics is one of the best.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Carmen knows she can stretch it out.
Well, I started gymnastics when I was 3, and I did it for 10 years or whatever, but I was just an all-around athlete. You know what I mean? I'm not good at just one sport, but I can play basketball, football, volleyball.
Lynn Swan took ballet.
Yeah, a lot of football players did that, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what she's saying is correct, is it builds the kid's body very quickly, and it helps them understand that they're strong in their strengths by just the gymnastics and even like dancing, ballet dancing. It's all learning how that body works at a very young age. Wrestling's kind of the same thing, where they learn that their body is strong and it does certain things. And at a young age, a lot of kids don't understand what their body can do.
Because I need my kid to do something good so I can retire early. And that's my 401k, that kid. I need him to get me in.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, gymnastics is a great start, and then wrestling and boxing.
It's so funny is that in my head, I'm like, this is probably not my son. He's probably going to be some sort of tight end football player, a hockey player or something. Yeah. But at the same time.
But doesn't matter if he does. You said, honey, thank you.
Yeah, I'm good either way. My
Just
daughter.
Don't tell me. I don't want to know the truth.
My daughter's 6 years old, and she reminds me a lot of you. She's crazy. Yeah, so she might be the kid.
I love it. Because like Tessa Blanchard, who is in Impact Wrestling. She's going for the world title, first woman to actually capture a world title. And when I look at her...
Who's she going against? A guy?
Sammy Callahan, the champion, man. But I'm telling you this, though. If I've ever seen a woman that
can
has
do
the
it?
intensity that I had going into a fight, Tessa Blanchard is it.
Really?
She is intense. She's driven. She's got those eyes when she stares at you. You're like, wait a minute. You forget she's a girl at a moment. You're like, I'm afraid.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she looks like it. Yeah, I'm
afraid.
So let me ask you this. Ronda Rousey kind of annoyed me one time when we were talking to her. We were having a pretty good conversation with her about her book, and I was asking her who she would fight, and then she got all pissy because I asked her if she'd ever fight a guy, and she's like, I knew you were going to say that. And I go, it's a pretty logical question, because when you get to a point where you've done everything and you're whipping everybody's ass, which she had been at the time, you got to think, well, I mean, look at Connor. I go up a weight class, I go down a weight class, I go up 2 weight classes. So for a girl, if you've dominated every girl, you like, I'm going to try and beat a guy. And she was not having it at all. But you ever see that happening, an intergender fight?
There's no question. I owned a gym where I had girls coming in, not punching or just grappling, that were beating my students that were, obviously they didn't have years of experience under their belt, but these girls were going in there and tapping out these guys that normally in a street fight would win most of their street fights. But they go in and they start rolling around with a girl, and she's choking them out, right? So, yeah, absolutely. In today's world, people are really underestimating the ability of a woman and the technique of a woman with lots of skill and years of experience. Man, they're definitely underestimating the opportunity a girl has of beating a man.
Oh, yeah. I especially, I mean, look, obviously in certain sports, they're not going to compete. But if you put two people in there with the same physical build and a weight class that's similar, you never know what's going to happen. It's not if their physical features are equal, then they're equal.
And I think, like I said, we have been programmed, at least men have been programmed in their head that women can't compete with men.
Right.
And for so long it's been true, but now with the training and the different supplements and the diets that women can get on now, that literally increases strength, increases the ability to equal out that strength difference. Man, that's a whole different ball. Now we're talking a whole different ball game now. It's like there is no strength difference anymore.
Yeah. This chick who beat up, who's the champion now for UFC, I don't know. I think she'd beat up a lot of guys too.
Nunez, no question. Nunez, no question, man. Women, like I said, when you talk about where it started from to where it's at right now, it's night and day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not for an instant in my mind would I ever put a roadblock up there saying that, well, no, it's just not possible. That, I mean, anytime you let your mind go there, that's when it happens.
See, Carmen, that's why women are going to go to the draft if there's a war. Send all the tough women first.
Hey, you're starting to see women get scholarships now, so the process is starting to happen.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't understand the thought process on any human being looking at another human being, man or woman, and saying you can't do it. Because you do that, they're going to do it.
You're absolutely right, and I'm all for that. I'm all for the equality. There are going to be sports where you look at women's basketball, and those women are incredible athletes, but nobody cares to watch it. Business-wise, it's not going to be very successful.
Right.
But as far as ability, it's a matter of time before we start mixing gender into different sports. I mean, there's no way in the world you can tell me there's not a female out there who can't play baseball as good as a male baseball player.
Right.
You know it's out there.
It's technique, right?
Yeah.
When you look at it's technique, and then if you can, because there's a lot of guys out there who do football and baseball and basketball that aren't extremely strong.
Right.
But because they have such good technical skills or they shoot good three-pointers, they don't need the strength.
Or they're fast or something. They have one particular thing,
Technique is their skill. That is the strength of when you talk about a woman that can compete with a man. It comes through the skills, and it's not through the strength, which is, I believe, will change with the knowledge of supplements and the different things out there now. That strength is definitely going to be you're going to see that in the rearview mirror here soon, because women are going to get just as strong as the men.
Oh, good. I can't wait to retire. My kids and wife do all the work.
I don't want to have to deal. My son, this is no joke. I remember my oldest boy, Ryan. He was wrestling his sophomore year. He was a 135-pounder, and there was this girl who was a senior, right? And of course, she had a crush on him, and they were doing this team thing where they were going around. They had 7 different teams, and it was a tournament. Well, she was the starter, right? She didn't beat him, but because she was a senior, she was the starter on the team in San Diego.
Right.
And so he was lent out to another school as their 135-pounder. Well, those two met in the finals. Both of them were undefeated. And he ends up going to overtime with her 9-9 and ends up beating her.
Wow,
and I remember to this day, because he ended up winning state, and to this day, he ended up telling himself, if I'd have lost that, my whole high school career, I'd have never lived that down.
That's right.
Isn't that
Even
crazy,
as equal as it is, you're still going to get crap for it.
We're talking 15 years ago, right?
That's funny.
And now I think wrestling is the #1 sport for women joining, whether it's combat, boxing, wrestling, any of that stuff, judo, jiu-jitsu. Wrestling is the #1 sport for women that are starting to join into a combat sport and go into being professional MMA. Wrestling is the top choice.
And it's not ugly women. It's not all ugly women. We had the Karate Hottie was in here not too long ago. We have a friend named Maria who is a black belt, and she's killing it. I mean, it's not just ugly chicks. I mean, these chicks get to a point where they're sick of being on the treadmill and sick of being on there. Like, I'm gonna go do something. I think it's great. I think it's great.
Man, just imagine, man. I just keep thinking to myself, man. And I love you, baby. I do. I'm not gonna cheat on you or anything like that. But boy, I tell you what, man. I wish high school when I was doing it was a lot more women wrestling then. Practice would have gone by so much better.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
I wouldn't have had such a problem with doing high crotches or half Nelsons over and over again.
You guys done? Couple more, Coach. Couple more.
Yeah, we'll put a little more time in here.
Let's talk about why you're here today. First of all, last time you were here, you and we're doing the Business Growth Celebrity Academy.
Yes.
Are you still doing that?
Yes. My buddy here, Brandon Rhymes, who's been listening to us reminisce a little bit, can tell you a little bit about it. But it's something that I'm passionate about, helping other people achieve their goals, being able to help them find within their own industry, how they could become popular and famous to help build their business. So,
and Brandon, that's. I see more of this now. That's a very smart way of growing your business, and I've heard you talk about it before. Go ahead, you've got to go right now.
Facebook Live.
So social media is giving everybody the opportunity to become that person, and I think that's good.
Yeah. Well, the idea is and first of all, what an honor to have a business partner like Ken Shamrock, UFC Hall of Famer.
Except what happens when you have to pay him and you don't have the money, and he's coming in and punch in his face.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is what I've done. And you've seen it with me, what I'm doing here with our show on the Bone on the Sunday mornings, the Real Estate Quarterback. The idea is growing your celebrity, creating a brand. If you follow guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, one of the social media guys, Grant Cardone, those types, it's all about building a brand, which I've done. I branded myself as the Real Estate Quarterback.
Let me just end it for a second. So last time you were here, we were just kind of getting to know you. I mean, I've heard your name on the show, on the station a bunch of times, but the minute I had a question about buying a house, you were the first guy I went to. It was right on my mind.
That's
it was the truth.
That's it right there.
Absolutely. And I'm honored to do that. And I love to do that. And, the show that I've developed is called, I kind of switched. I started in the beginning as the Real Estate Quarterback, and then, as I'm bringing on sponsors and expert contributors for the show, it kind of limited me a little bit. So what I did is I rebranded as the Consumer Quarterback, because I have a deep passion, a moral obligation to give back, because a lot of people don't understand credit and finance and estate planning and those types of decisions. We weren't really taught that in school. So the idea is, as the Consumer Quarterback, is I'm a consumer advocate. So I want to help people with those decisions, credit improvement, all those different areas of real estate. And of course, my wife and I own a top team at Keller Williams Realty. So I'm honored to answer those questions and be there to help people values on their home. But Business Growth Celebrity Academy, bgca.co, Ken and I launched that company, and we are basically, it's based on the book that I wrote, Become the MVP in Your Industry by Surfing the Radio Waves, which that's another smart move for any person in sales is, write the book, become the celebrity, become the authoritative expert, and that's what radio also helps you do. And then now with the cameras, you've got the Bone TV, everything, so now you've got the TV show, and then what else are you doing? You're creating a podcast, you're creating Facebook posts, Instagram, social media.
Mentally, you become the authority to other people. This guy's got his own show and his own TV thing, and they turn to you.
That's right, and that's what I want to be. I want to be that authoritative expert. I want to help people, and the idea is for us now is that we want to take this worldwide, nationwide, because if you think about it, real estate's a perfect example, but it could work for an attorney. It could work for a natural type of doctor, the CBD type doctors, whoever, anybody that has a platform where they're selling something, we can teach them with the Business Growth Celebrity Academy how to start their show, grow their show, get a lot of cool barters in place, and live a celebrity lifestyle.
And let me throw this out there to you, and we've talked about it on the show before, but let me tell you that there's a little Asian kid on YouTube who does nothing more than open boxes of toys, and the kid's a multi-millionaire.
Yeah,
I mean, you find the right way to present something, and that's really all you need. And there's areas of people that that just need that opportunity. There's plenty of local chefs in the area.
Yes.
And people who make their own carpenters and things like that, who can become those guys. I mean, look at those all those people that you see on those DIY shows. Those are all just people who got on TV. They probably had the same skill as this guy who's sitting at home.
That's right.
But they were able to do that on TV. I think it's a brilliant idea.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate that. And the idea also is that there's riches in the niches, as you just mentioned. You know, there's all types of niches, and if you are that expert in that singular niche, you can build a show around it. You can build the podcast around it, and then it gives you the opportunity to cross over audiences, go into different streams. For us, it's been able to. We've got 50+ show partners, so we bring on CPAs, financial advisors. So that's where I get, again, back to the consumer advocate aspect, and not just the real estate niche. I want to be, talking about health and nutrition and lifestyle and recreation, so that way it gives us great show content as well.
My buddy Pete, my best friend, we want to talk about a go-getter. He saw when we first got hockey in this town, he was a producer on a sports radio station, and he saw an opportunity. There was nobody doing a hockey show, and he came from Chicago where hockey was huge, but hockey was new here. Right. And he went and bought the time on a radio station and created a show called Center Ice, and immediately started making more money on that show than most of the hosts made in the other time, because he was selling advertising to the people who also sponsored hockey. And then from then on, he became like an authority for hockey in the area. So these things definitely work. I think this is great. What's the website again?
BGCA.co.
Okay.
Business Growth Celebrity Academy is the company name, BGCA.co.
Fishing charter guys. Like, there's so many of those people.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a truth. And anybody... Like if you listen to a podcast, I always tell people, like, comedians always do podcasts, and we always go, stop doing them. They're ridiculous. It's just you. It's so ancestral. It's just you and your same comedian friends telling the same stories on 5 different podcasts. It's awful. But if you're a guy who's got a niche thing or a hobby that you're totally interested in or something, that's where it works. That's where it works.
Right? It has to be something different that people can go, hey, I mean, yeah, that's cool. Like,
make
not
it interesting.
Competing with anything. There's like 1 million of them out there. And you're like... and there's a lot of them are doing really well.
Right.
Like Joe Rogan has done really well, but he was in the beginning, right? I mean, he has those stories. So, I mean, he's an authoritative on it, but it took him to get out there to get it done.
He did it for years before anybody really paid attention to it. Right. So that's the truth. What are you doing? You're also doing a Wounded Warrior event?
That's tonight, 7 o'clock at Firearms Academy, Florida Firearms Academy. Tonight at 7 o'clock. We're down there, and we're definitely. I'm a big, and I know Brandon is too. We're a big supporter in our military, especially we start seeing things that are happening now. It doesn't matter Republican, Democrat, or whatever stance that you take. It's not about that. It's about guys that are out there every single day.
So that we don't have to be.
We're not out there taking bullets. We're not out there.
I'm way too precious.
And listen, man, we got to appreciate those guys because if we don't, man, then a shame on us. Go somewhere else to live, because that's the only reason. That's the only reason why we're able to do what we do, is because these guys are out there protecting the borders that we have. So whatever your beliefs are, just put those aside right now. Just support the military. 7 o'clock, Firearms Academy, Florida Firearms Academy tonight at 7 o'clock.
Where is that, Brandon? What's the address?
Florida Firearms Academy is right on. It's in the Oldsmar area, kind of. It's close to the Oldsmar flea market.
I know exactly where it is. Yep. So it's between Racetrack Road, it's right before Racetrack Road.
That's right.
And it's set back a little bit over there, but there's signs from Hillsborough Avenue or Tampa Road, whatever it is. Yeah, I've been in there before. That place is great. Tonight, you'll have an opportunity to go and meet Ken and Brandon. They will be out there and definitely help support the Wounded Warriors.
I think it's on Eventbrite, Mike.
Oh, Eventbrite, or I imagine they can get them at the door if it doesn't sell out?
Yeah, they can get them on the door, and it's free for veterans, first responders. It's free. We got catered food, DJ. It's going to be an awesome time.
Are you a good shot? You know why I asked that?
I can hit a barn.
You know why I asked that, and I don't know if you want to hear this, but you know who the best shot I've ever seen is? Hoyce Gracie.
I've heard that. The guy's a gun. He's got guns everywhere, man.
He is. So we went.
Like he needs a.
Something.
So in other words, you're saying he can also shoot, kill you with a weapon, but if you don't have that, he can kill you with his hands.
Right.
Well, that's a great combination.
I don't know what it is, but it's the same way with Steven Seagal. They got that crazy magic. I watched him. We were joking around. We went out shooting, and he will call it. I mean, top left, ping, ping, like he's ninja, ninja shooting style. Yeah.
See, I never really got too much involved. I mean, I've taken lessons. I've been a security guy, so I've worked in the industry like that, but never to that level where, I had to hit a fly on the top of somebody's nose.
Right.
Not like that.
I think you should get more of your friends and take the sleeves off your shirts and put on camo clothes, and then we'll send those pictures to Iran and be like, these are our guys.
Yeah,
Just
right.
want to let you know that they're here for you.
We torture people.
Hey, Mike, by the way, the Second Amendment is under attack in America right now, man. Especially in Virginia. The governor up there, I mean, if you see what they're doing right now, and that's one of the reasons why, as a consumer advocate, we need to be able to protect ourselves. And Florida Firearms Academy, Thomas King, they do a lot over there. And if you really understand how law enforcement works, and there's all types of stuff that happens in the Bay Area, of course, across the country. It happens everywhere. Talk about home invasions and those types of things. The criminals are going to have guns. We need to be able to protect ourselves. So
I'm very much for that. I have a lot of guns in my house and in my car, and now thanks to Galvin and secret safes that I have on the walls. And I'm a responsible gun owner, and I'm a perfect example of the reason why we should be able to have them to protect ourselves.
Exactly.
So and for those people who want to come get our guns,
Good luck.
Take a shot at it. See how that works out for you.
Good luck.
Go see them tonight at Florida Firearms in Oldsmar. Ken, it's great to see you.
I appreciate you, man.
Spanish, call him a pussy to his face now. See how that works out for you.
No, I never did that.
Hey, first of all, too, don't forget on the 12th, which is Sunday, Impact Wrestling. I'll be at pay-per-view in Dallas, man. Check it out, man. It's going to be a good show.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Galvin was asking before you walked in, dude, guys, because of your size, tough young guys ever, like, you go out to a bar or something? I know you don't seem like the bar guy, but I mean, guys ever think that they're gonna win the belt that day? Step up to you out in the parking lot?
Well, there's always, especially in pro wrestling, you always get guys that get in the ring because there's a lot more leeway there with guys being able to hit you a little bit harder than most because they know that, with my reputation, I'm not going to go back and knock somebody out. So there's some guys that take some liberties, but I always give a receipt.
Yeah, you have to.
I always give
who is the toughest guy outside the ring? Like the toughest guy in the locker room?
Oh, man, in pro wrestling, you'd be very shocked. There's a lot of guys that you just don't want to mess with because whether it's not about being fair, it's about winning.
Well, that's true.
That's the truth because they don't care.
I was surprised when I found out how quickly Jericho locked up Goldberg.
Yeah.
When they got in the fight. Not that I didn't think Jericho was tough, but Jericho's not the biggest guy in the world, and Goldberg is.
But Jericho studies.
Yeah.
He's not a joke, so he knows what he's doing. I mean, not to the level of a professional fighter, but for pro wrestling, if anybody was to challenge him, my money would be on him.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know now.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always curious. You see all these giant guys, but then somebody will whisper to you, that's the guy you got to watch out for.
Yeah, and Jericho is very, very sneaky about it. He doesn't really let a whole lot of people know what he is. So, but I can see when people move, and I can see the talent when people are doing different things. And like I said, he's not a professional by any means. But if it was anybody in a pro wrestling ring, he could handle himself.
That's my worst fear. My worst fear is getting beat up by a high school kid. My second worst fear is, like, I wouldn't mess with you. If I saw you in those arms coming, I'd be like, give that guy whatever he wants. But if I saw a guy like Brandon, I'd be like, I'd kill Brandon.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, Brandon locking me up, making me
100-mile-an-hour
bleed through my nose.
You're like, where'd that come from?
Jesus. Listen, good luck tonight. Good luck with the event. And if you're interested, if you're somebody's listening to this show right now that's like, I'm the greatest at this, I should have my own podcast. I should turn it into something. Contact these guys because that's how you do it, man. Grow the network. Gentlemen, thank you. We will take a quick break. It's the Mike Calta Show. It's 102.5 The Bone.
You're listening to the Mike Calta Show on 102.5.